Welcome to the Depth Dive. Today, we're really plunging into something fascinating, something that's kind of bubbling up everywhere online. It's this weird paradox. How can the idea of World War III, something genuinely terrifying, turn into, well, memes,
Yes.
shared jokes? So our mission today is to unpack that. Why are these hashtag WWIEI memes exploding?
Mhm.
How are people, especially younger generations, using them? And what do some of these actually look like?
It's a really stark thing to see, isn't it? How fast collective anxiety just surfaces online.
Yeah.
We're seeing this collision, really, of major global events pushing hashtag WWIEI right to the top, on X, other platforms.
Yeah.
We're talking about, well, the escalating tensions between Iran and Israel, the conflict in Gaza that's ongoing, and of course, the war in Ukraine is still very much a factor.
Right. It's a lot.
It is. And look, wartime humor isn't brand new. People have always used humor in dark times.
Mm-hmm.
But the sheer number, the prevalence of World War III specific memes, right now, June 2025.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that feels like a pretty strong signal. You mentioned examples, and one really stood out. Just WWIIA anyone. Bread.
Yeah, the bread one. So
Yeah.
simple. So simple. But it hints at this deep, almost primal worry underneath, doesn't it? Food, survival, conflict, all wrapped up in a joke.
Exactly. Which brings us to the core question, I think.
Mhm.
Why does this kind of dark humor, this really bleak stuff, resonate so strongly right now? So, okay, the world gives us the scary headlines. But what's going on inside us psychologically that makes dark humor the go-to response?
Hmm.
Especially for, say, Gen Z. We talk about dark humor, or even gallows humor, that humor from really desperate situations.
Mhm.
It's not just about being edgy or shocking people. It acts like an emotional buffer, right? It's like you're reframing things, taking something huge and terrifying, making it absurd, and in that absurdity, you maybe feel like you have a tiny bit of control back, even for a second.
That's a great way to put it. And it's really striking how Gen Z specifically has leaned into this. I mean, they grew up online. For many of them, memes aren't just throwaway jokes. They almost function as this kind of real-time collective therapy session.
Therapy through memes. Sort of, yeah. A joke about the apocalypse, or that loaf of bread, it actually creates a strange sense of community. Shared experience, resilience, it lets them process these enormous feelings together, publicly almost. And, psychologists and even comedians have noted this for ages. Turning fear into a joke can give you back a sense of power.
Power, or at least perspective.
Perspective, exactly. But there's a nuance there too, isn't there? It can help you cope, but maybe it also blunts the edges a bit, makes the serious stuff seem less serious. We can talk about that.
Definitely. Let's hold that thought. But first, to really get this, we need more concrete examples. You mentioned the bread one, but what else is out there? What kind of memes really capture this? Well, they're certainly varied. There's that simple image, the bread asking, WWWI, very stark. Then you've got graphics like loading, WWIEI imminent, designed like a video game progress bar.
Right, tapping into that digital native language.
Exactly. And of course, those sarcastic polls you see, like choose your fighter, nuclear winter, or total economic collapse. Grim stuff.
Grim, but also kind of brilliant in their own way. They use that surreal absurdity, that almost cartoonish quality, to push back against fear that feels just overwhelming. These memes, they reflect very real personal anxieties, but they also give those anxieties a shape, a structure within this shared online space. It's like building a common language for a shared dread, acknowledging the elephant in the room without letting it trample you.
A shared language for dread. I like
Yeah.
that.
But, and this is the crucial point we touched on, there's always a but. Humor provides relief, catharsis, absolutely.
Yeah.
But does consistently joking about, say, nuclear war run the risk of, well, desensitizing us?
Making it normal.
Yeah, normalizing it. It's like building up a tolerance. The initial shock wears off, the danger signal becomes just background noise, and then maybe it's harder to tell what's a real warning and what's just, another dark joke. So there's this tension, definitely. Coping versus potentially downplaying something incredibly serious.
And that tension feels really central here. We talked about community, that sense of connection these memes foster. You see it, you share it, you feel like, okay, I'm not the only one freaking out.
Which is huge, right? Instant catharsis in this crazy fast world.
It is huge. Feeling less alone when facing something daunting like global conflict is vital.
But does that community, built around shared anxiety and dark jokes, ever risk just becoming an echo chamber, where the anxiety just bounces around and maybe even gets amplified?
That's a critical question. That's the potential downside, isn't it? Trivialization is one risk, apathy might be another. Maybe the key isn't if we cope this way, because people clearly are, but how we make sure that coping doesn't slide into just not caring. or not engaging with the reality. What's the actual danger of constantly joking? Worry is that it could numb us to the real human cost, the real consequences, make it harder to feel empathy, harder to engage constructively.
So it's a balancing act. It really is. But look, understanding why this is happening, why people are memeing WWIII, is valuable in itself. It gives us insight into collective stress points, what people are really worried about deep down. And maybe, just maybe, being aware of that can actually help us maintain empathy, even when things feel incredibly tense.
Okay, so wrapping this up, what does this mean for you listening right now? If you've seen these World War III memes scrolling past on your feed, well, you're definitely not alone in feeling that weird mix of anxiety and absurdity. What we've unpacked today shows this whole trend is basically a digital coping mechanism, a very 2025 way of dealing with current global events. So here's a final thought to chew on. If you understand why we meme about things this intense, maybe it helps you tune into that collective stress, that shared feeling. And perhaps understanding that connection is a small step towards keeping empathy alive, even when the headlines are bleak and the jokes are dark. Something to think about.